Hello, my name is Brenton and I will soon be a graduate of philosophy and history, and hope to get a master's in philosophy soon. Maybe write a book or two in the future. The reason why I'm starting these episodes is because in the last 100 years or so, they've said that philosophy is dead. Not dead in the sense that there aren't thinkers, there will always be intelligent thinkers, but dead in the sense that although few everyday people paid attention to the world's problems that didn't directly affect them in the past, even fewer have the time or care to in our modern world. So, I want to start these videos of discussions of philosophical issues. These will be anywhere from the state of the world to particular philosophers to abstract philosophical questions. I will do an episode about once every 1 or 2 weeks, and in between, I will do my best to look at questions that you guys want me to answer, any topic suggestions people may have, and respond to comments, so please don't hesitate to comment. In our modern age, it's hard to sit down and read a dense 400-page work of philosophy, even if we do want to think about the world that we live in. So I look to engage with younger people in our tech age, working adults, scholars of all kinds, and, of course, philosophers, in a more digestible manner. Depending on the topic, I will draw on philosophies that I have learned up until this point, along with some interpretation of my own. The topic that I will be discussing today is human suffering. It seems to be a basic question to wonder why suffering exists. I often hear people ask, why is there suffering in the world? Is conflict inevitable? Why can't we all live in peace? This is probably one of the biggest questions I will address, and obviously this isn't one that can be addressed in a short period, nor does it have a clear answer at all. But I can do my best to shed light on this issue as it's existed through time and what it means in contemporary society. There are thinkers like Thomas Hobbes who thought that people are inherently bad, that we are selfish and only live in peaceable societies because otherwise we would have short and cold lives constantly filled with loneliness, violence, and death. There are those such as John Locke who believe that humans are naturally good and are looking to help each other and benefit the world. And then there are those who combine these views in more nuanced premises, like Plato. Plato believed that there were 3 classifications of human souls: bronze, silver, and gold. Those who were bronze souls were guided merely by their appetites, desires for things like physical pleasure and material wealth. Those who were silver were guided by ambition, desires for stature and power. And those who were gold of soul were guided by reason, and in Plato's view were truly fit to lead society. Plato believed that all humans had all 3 parts in them, but that silver-souled people could control their appetites, and that those of gold soul could control both appetite and ambition to be truly virtuous. Although Plato's system was somewhat rigid, it was possible in rare cases for a bronze or silver soul to ascend to rationality through education, but I will stress that this was a truly rare occurrence, and often Plato attributed this to being an undiscovered gold soul. Finally, there are the ideas of the Far Eastern canon, those such as Buddhism, that assert that all humans have both light and dark, good and evil in them. It's easier to work with these composite theories, these theories that acknowledge both the vice and virtue in mankind in order to assess the origin of suffering. Walking around the streets on a day-to-day basis or turning on the news, we see so much crime, so much violence, so much suffering caused by other people. So it's hard for people to subscribe to claims like Locke made that men are naturally good. That being said, however, we also see from the most disastrous situations to the smallest deeds that humans can be truly kind. Therefore, it is necessary to look at man as both having the capacity for good and evil. There are ideas like egoism that claim that men are not selfish but self-interested, which are separate ideas. Ideas like egoism seem to have some value because they leave room for humans to benefit one another but also benefit themselves. People are often impressed with the giver who gets nothing out of giving to someone less fortunate or donating to a cause from which they get no reward. However, those who believe in egoism, aptly named egoists, believe that the positive feeling of helping people that we get from giving is its own kind of reward. Philosophers like Adam Smith believe that not only did people get a positive feeling by doing right by others, but that in fact we as humans naturally desire the approval of other humans. That not only do we want praise, but we want to be seen as being worthy of that praise. So now that we have established that humans can be both good and evil, and that we want to benefit ourselves as well as others, we can try to get closer to the root of suffering. From the moment that we are born, all humans have needs. Biologically, we share the same basic needs of food, water, sex, and shelter. We also have desires, anywhere from primal instincts like self-preservation to our own particular goals. As we are brought up, we are taught different values, equipped with different skills and aptitudes, and it is from this that strife is born. Societies are structured such that certain skills are valued over other skills, and thus the more valued skills will receive more compensation, which creates inequality. And a big enough gap in compensation will inevitably lead to suffering. As people get older, we all have different combinations of needs and wants that create our particular motivations for actions. While our motivations and goals overlap with those of other people, we will see no problem in cooperating with them. However, once our goals or motivations start diverging from those of others, we start to see them as obstacles or threats to our success or happiness. In terms of upbringing and belief, there are those fundamental beliefs that vary from culture to culture that one is taught to hold on to no matter what. These may be based on honor, virtue, religion, or a number of other things. This is not a problem in itself. However, when a difference in beliefs does surface, people will naturally try to resolve it. This does not mean that they will necessarily resort to violence, but will usually try to reach an understanding with one another. However, when such an understanding cannot be reached, this is when true conflict is born. When two people or two groups view their beliefs as a foundation that cannot be compromised, this in turn creates violence. However, as this violence increases, tolerance also gets eliminated. The Dalai Lama often talks about our declining ability to understand one another. When we walk around, we often try to categorize people and separate this person from that person. And as the divide between people we understand and people we don't understand grows, people we don't understand become alien to us, and we start to view them as actually dangerous. There is a small part of our brain called the amygdala that triggers our reaction to danger and our fight or flight response. And this part actually gets activated when we encounter people who we see as fundamentally different from ourselves. Thus, we have a primal negative reaction to those we don't understand, which makes it easy for us to react violently. But are we condemned to always be this way? No. The rational part of our brain is capable of overriding these primal responses. However, we have to acknowledge our lack of understanding or our prejudices against certain people and truly address it in order to become more peaceable. With the exception of the mentally ill or a small percentage of people who truly wish to harm others, we must accept that most people, like ourselves, are decent people who are looking for happiness and looking to avoid harm. So is conflict inevitable? Yes, but that isn't to say that good cannot come of conflict. Sometimes creative resolutions to problems, displays of true human ingenuity, and healthy competition would never come about if it weren't for conflict. The key is balance, however. Most philosophers agree that a society that shows the individual that they are valued, while at the same time reminding them that they are an integral part of the whole, are the happiest and most successful. However, with so many conflicting motivations within society and within an individual person, this type of balance is much easier said than done. Now, is suffering inevitable? In itself, yes. At a very base level, there will always be things like natural disasters and unforeseen misfortunes. But it seems that the extent can in fact be controlled. It's an unfortunate but undeniable fact that some people, due to various factors like talent, street smarts, connections, etc., will be more monetarily successful than others. But we must always work to make sure that every person has their basic human needs met. It is also necessary to realize that monetary wealth or social status do not necessarily make a person happy. The ancient Greeks were especially keen on this idea. They believed that if all someone valued was money or success, that person would end up unfulfilled and would be caught in an endless cycle of wanting more and more material possessions. The ancient Greeks of the Academy, the school of Plato, thought that constantly trying to make sense of the world and our place in it through writing, conversing, through math and the sciences was the way to achieve true happiness. In addition to this belief, philosophers of the Far East argued that people need to be in groups in order to be healthy and happy. The Chinese character for man is literally man plus one, which denotes that a person cannot even be considered a human unless he is with and accepted by other people. There are also Western philosophers who have adapted interpretations of this sort of view as well, but ground their claims in the fact that one must be loyal to their nation or their state in order to be truly happy and virtuous. Happiness is a very complicated notion, one that may be addressed in a later episode, because, after all, this is a discussion of suffering. Like happiness, suffering is also a complicated concept because it comes in so many forms. I already mentioned that suffering due to a lack of basic human needs can, in theory, be avoided. But many people consider any sort of lack of happiness as suffering. That is to say, emotional pain, misfortune, and the like are considered suffering. However, this sort of suffering should not be viewed as all negative. Many argue that shortcomings and emotional pain make us stronger as human beings and create a greater ability for us to be happy. Furthermore, sharing negative experiences creates a strong bond between strangers. So although the world is full of this kind of suffering, one cannot underestimate the importance of perspective and perseverance. Conflict and suffering will always be around us, but it's what we decide to do about it, how we react to it, and how we eventually overcome it that creates strong and happy human beings. I will end with one of my favorite quotes. To live is to suffer, but to survive is to find meaning in that suffering. Alright, well that's all from me for today, so please feel free to comment, to ask questions, and to suggest a future topic. After all, thinking about the world we live in should be a discussion between people. So thank you, and I look forward to making future episodes really soon.